The traffic on Lekki Ape Expressway was at a complete standstill. Car horns blared an angry symphony as the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the sea of vehicles. Hawkers weaved between cars, selling everything from plantain chips to phone chargers. Inside her white Range Rover, Adanna Okafor sat frozen, her hands gripping the leather steering wheel until her knuckles turned pale. Through her tinted window, she watched him. The homeless man who'd been standing at this same traffic light for 3 months. Every day, she'd seen him holding a worn cardboard sign, his clothes tattered but somehow still clean. His name was Chike. She'd learned that 2 weeks ago when she'd started giving him money. Not small change like others threw. Real money. Enough to make him remember her face. Today, she needed more than his memory. Adanna pushed open her door, and the heat slammed into her like a wall. The designer Ankara dress she wore, worth more than most people's monthly salary, clung to her skin as she stepped onto the hot asphalt. Her Louis Vuitton sandals clicked against the road. What would you do if you saw a billionaire step out of her car in traffic? Hit like if you've ever been desperate enough to throw away your pride, and comment below where you're watching from. Madam, your car. A Danfo bus driver yelled, but Adanna didn't stop. She walked straight toward Chike, who stood near the traffic light, his cardboard sign lowered in confusion. The traffic remained stopped. Other drivers began to notice. Phones came out of windows. Chike, Adanna said, her voice loud enough to carry over the noise. I need to ask you something. The homeless man's eyes widened. He was probably in his early 40s, with a beard that had started to gray and eyes that held stories he'd never told her. Madam Adanna, you shouldn't be out here in this sun. Please marry me. The words cut through the traffic noise like a knife. Everything seemed to stop. The hawkers paused mid-pitch. Drivers leaned out of their windows. Even the Adborough boys collecting tolls turned to stare. Chike's cardboard sign fell from his hands, clattering to the ground. Madam, what? You heard me. Adanna's voice was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. I'm asking you to marry me. Not for love. Not forever. Just for 6 months. A woman in a nearby Camry gasped loud enough to be heard. Huh. This woman Don craze. Is this one of those TikTok pranks? Someone shouted. But Adanna's eyes never left Chike's face. Behind her, traffic began to move, but her Range Rover sat blocking an entire lane. Horns blared louder. An Okada driver nearly crashed trying to see what was happening. Madam Adanna, I don't understand. Chike started, but she cut him off. My father died 3 months ago. Chief Eko Okafor. She watched recognition flicker in his eyes. Everyone in Lagos knew that name. His will stated that I must be married before I turn 40, or everything goes to my uncle. My daughter Zainab, and I will have nothing. I turned 40 in 2 weeks. The traffic had begun to flow around her abandoned vehicle, but more people were stopping now, deliberately slowing down to watch. This was better than Nollywood. Madam, I'm homeless, Chike said carefully. I sleep under the Lekki Bridge. I haven't had a real job in 5 years. Why would you? Because every man I know wants to take something from me. Adanna interrupted, her voice rising with desperation. They want my company, my father's pharmaceutical empire, my connections, my body. But you? She stepped closer. You don't even know what I'm worth. You just know I'm the woman who gives you 5,000 naira every morning. Chike's jaw tightened. Around them, the crowd grew. Hawkers abandoned their trays. Drivers left their vehicles running. This was the kind of Lagos drama that would trend on Twitter before sunset. What would I have to do? Chike asked quietly. Live in my house in Ikoyi. Wear decent clothes. Show up at the will reading in 2 weeks. Sign the marriage certificate. Then, after 6 months, we divorce, and you walk away with 10 million naira. The crowd erupted. 10 million naira. People were screaming now, some laughing, some shouting advice. Oga, marry her now. This is how God answers prayers. But Chike didn't smile. He bent down, picked up his cardboard sign, and met Adanna's eyes with an intensity that made her breath catch. I'll do it, he said. But I have one condition. Adanna's heart leaped. Anything. Name your price. After we marry, Chike said slowly, his voice cutting through the noise, you have to help me find someone. A woman. She's homeless too, somewhere in Lagos. I've been searching for her for 5 years. He paused, and something painful flickered across his face. I need to find my mother. The crowd went silent. Even the traffic noise seemed to fade. Adanna stared at him. Your mother is homeless? Yes, and I believe you have the resources to find her. Chike's hands tightened around his sign. That's my price, Madam Adanna. Not money. Help me find my mother, or there's no deal. Someone in the crowd whispered, this man is Mad Shah. But Adanna saw something in Chike's eyes, something desperate and raw and real. She'd expected him to ask for more money, for a car, for a house. Every man she knew wanted material things. Deal, she said, extending her hand. Chike stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment, then slowly reached out and shook it. His palm was calloused and rough against her soft skin. A roar went up from the crowd. People were filming everything now. By evening, this would be all over Instagram, Twitter, Linda Ikeji's blog. As Adanna walked back to her Range Rover, her phone began buzzing violently in her designer handbag. She didn't need to look to know what was happening. The videos were already going viral. She slid into her car and finally checked her phone. 43 missed calls. Her daughter Zainab, her secretary, her Uncle Obi, and one message that made her blood run cold. It was from her uncle. I just saw the video. You think marrying a homeless man will save you? I'll prove he's a fraud at the Wool reading. You've already lost, Adanna. She looked in her rearview mirror. Chike was still standing there, watching her car. People surrounded him now, asking questions, taking photos. What had she just done? And why did she have the sinking feeling that Chike Okonkwo was hiding something far bigger than a missing mother? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think Chike is really hiding? Comment below. The Okafor mansion in Ikoyi sat behind high walls crowned with electric fencing. Adanna's hands were steady on the steering wheel as she pulled through the gates, but her mind was chaos. In the passenger seat beside her, Chike sat rigid, his eyes taking in everything. The manicured lawns, the fountain, the house that looked more like a 5-star hotel than a home. This is where you live, he said. It wasn't a question. This is where we live now, Adanna corrected. At least for the next 6 months. She'd sent her driver to bring Chike's few belongings from wherever he'd been keeping them. There hadn't been much. A backpack with 2 shirts, 1 pair of trousers, and a photograph, so worn it was nearly transparent. Chike had refused to let anyone else touch that photograph. The front door burst open before they'd even parked. Zainab came running out, her teenage braids flying behind her, her school uniform skirt swirling around her knees. At 15, she had her mother's sharp cheekbones and her late grandfather's fierce intelligence. Mummy, Zainab's voice was shrill with panic. Mummy, it's all over social media. They're saying you proposed to a homeless man in traffic. Tell me it's not true. Adanna stepped out of the car, her designer heels clicking on the cobblestones. Zainab, calm down. Calm down. Her daughter's eyes were wild. Do you know what they're saying at school? Do you know what Chisholm and her friends sent me? Videos of you on your knees in traffic. Tears streamed down Zainab's face. How could you embarrass us like this? Chike climbed out of the passenger side slowly. He'd remained silent during the entire drive from Lekki, but now he stood there, looking at the crying teenager with something like understanding in his eyes. Zainab's voice died in her throat when she saw him. She looked from her mother to Chike and back again. No, Mummy, tell me this isn't him. Tell me you didn't actually. Zainab, this is Chike Okonkwo, Adanna said firmly. In 2 weeks, he'll be my husband, which makes him your stepfather. I'd rather have no father than a homeless man. Zainab screamed. The words echoed across the compound. Even the security guard at the gate winced. Chike flinched as if he'd been slapped, but he didn't respond. He simply stood there, his worn clothes looking even more out of place against the backdrop of wealth. Zainab Okafor, you will apologize right now. Adanna's voice was ice. Why should I? Zainab's tears had turned to rage. You've ruined everything. Everyone at school is laughing at me. They're saying we must be broke, that we've lost all our money, that this is why you're marrying a beggar. We are about to lose everything, Adanna said quietly. Your grandfather's will. I don't care about Grandpa's will. I don't care about the money. Zainab sobbed. I care about you making us the laughingstock of Lagos. The sound of another car pulling up made everyone turn. A sleek black Mercedes parked beside Adanna's Range Rover, and out stepped Uncle Obi, Chief Emeka's younger brother. He was a thick-set man in his 60s, wearing an expensive agbada and enough gold jewelry to open a store. Well, Uncle Obi said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. I had to see it with my own eyes. My brilliant niece, so desperate to keep her inheritance that she's brought home a street rat. Uncle, this is not the time, Adanna started. Oh, but it is the perfect time. Uncle Obi walked closer, circling Chike like a predator studying prey. Tell me, mister, what was your name again? Chike Okonkwo, Chike said steadily. Okonkwo. Uncle Obi laughed, a harsh sound. Ah, so you're Igbo? Good. At least she didn't pick a Yoruba man. His laughter died. Tell me, Chike Okonkwo, what do you do for a living? Right now? Nothing. Uncle Obi turned to Adanna triumphantly. You hear that, Zainab? Your mother is marrying a man who does nothing. Not even the dignity to lie about it. Uncle Obi, leave my house, Adanna said. Your house? Your house. Uncle Obi's voice rose. In 2 weeks, when the will is read and this farce of a marriage is exposed, this will be my house. My brother's company will be mine. Everything will be. Get out, Adanna shouted. Uncle Obi smiled slowly. I'm going, but I'll see you at the will reading, niece. And I'll see you too, Mr. Okonkwo. I'm going to enjoy watching you try to convince the lawyers that this isn't a sham marriage. He walked back to his Mercedes, then paused. Oh, and Adanna, the videos have been viewed over 2 million times. You're famous now. Lagos is laughing at you. The Mercedes pulled away, leaving silence in its wake. Zainab was the first to break it. I hate you, she whispered to her mother, then ran into the house, her sobs echoing through the open door. Adanna stood frozen, watching her daughter disappear. Every muscle in her body wanted to chase after Zainab, to explain, to make her understand. But what could she say? That she'd been backed into a corner by her father's outdated will? That she'd panicked and made a desperate choice? She'll come around, Chike said quietly. Adanna turned on him, all her frustration finding a target. You don't know anything about my daughter. You don't know anything about this family. You're right. I don't. Chike picked up his backpack from where the driver had left it. But I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like when people look at you like you're worthless. He started walking toward the house. Where should I sleep? The casual question threw Adanna off balance. To the guest wing. 3rd floor. My secretary Ngozi will show you. Chike nodded and walked past her into the house. Through the windows, Adanna could see Ngozi, her loyal secretary of 10 years, try not to stare at the homeless man now standing in the marble foyer. Adanna's phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from her friend Amaka. Adanna, what's going on? Call me. Please tell me this is some kind of publicity stunt for the company. She couldn't answer, couldn't explain, because the truth was she didn't know what this was anymore. The sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. From inside the house, she heard Zainab's music blaring, some American rap song about betrayal and broken trust. On any other day, Adanna would have told her to turn it down. Today, she let it play. As she finally walked toward her house, she noticed something on the ground where Chike had been standing. The worn photograph from his backpack must have fallen. She picked it up carefully. It showed a young woman, maybe in her 30s, wearing a nurse's uniform. She was beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. On the back, in faded ink, someone had written, Mama, 1998. Federal Medical Center, Lagos. Adanna stared at the photograph. Chike's mother had been a nurse, which meant she'd been educated, professional, middle class. So what had happened? How had she ended up homeless on Lagos streets? And more importantly, why had Chike ended up the same way? Inside the house, she heard Ngozi's voice rising in shock, followed by Chike's calm responses. The staff was meeting their new master of the house. Adanna looked at the photograph one more time, then tucked it into her handbag. She made a deal. She'd find Chike's mother. But first, she needed to figure out who Chike Okonkwo really was. Because no homeless man spoke with his educated accent. No street beggar carried himself with his quiet dignity. And no one truly desperate would have asked for something as intangible as help finding a lost mother instead of grabbing the 10 million naira with both hands. Chike was hiding something, and Adanna had just invited him into her home, into her life, and into her daughter's future. 3 days before the will reading, Adanna's office at Okafor Pharmaceuticals was in chaos. Her secretary Ngozi had fielded over 200 interview requests from bloggers, newspapers, and television stations. The story of the billionaire and the homeless man had gone beyond viral. It had become a national obsession. But Adanna wasn't thinking about the media. She was staring at the report on her desk, the one her private investigator had delivered that morning. Subject, Chike Okonkwo. Status, no criminal record, no debt, no history of fraud or violence. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part came 3 paragraphs down. Previous employment, Chief Medical Officer, Zenith Hospital Group, 2010 to 2019. Resigned under unclear circumstances. Salary at time of resignation, 15 million Nigerian nairas annually. Adanna read it 3 times. Chike had been a doctor, not just any doctor, a chief medical officer at one of Lagos's most prestigious hospital chains. He'd earned more in a year than most people saw in a lifetime. Impossible, she whispered. Her office door burst open. Zainab stood there in her school uniform, her face flushed with anger. It was only 11 a.m. She should have been in class. They sent me home, Zainab said flatly. What? Who sent you home? The principal. Zainab's voice was bitter. Someone's parents complained that it was inappropriate for me to be in school right now, that our family situation was causing a distraction. She threw her backpack on the floor. Because of you. Because of that man. Adanna stood up, her blood boiling. Give me the principal's number. I'll call right now. Don't bother. Zainab slumped into a chair. Everyone's talking about us. Even the teachers. Mrs. Adeyemi asked me, in front of the whole class, if it was true that we were going broke. Tears welled in her eyes. Chisholm told everyone you must be pregnant, and that's why you're marrying him so fast. That's ridiculous. Is it? Zainab's voice rose. Because nothing makes sense, Mummy. Nothing. You're beautiful. You're rich. You could have any man in Lagos. But you chose a homeless man. A beggar. There has to be a reason. And if you won't tell me, people will make up their own reasons. Before Adanna could respond, her phone rang. It was Ngozi from the front desk. Ma, there's a situation in the lobby. Adanna's stomach sank. What kind of situation? It's Mr. Chike, Ma. And your uncle is here. They're arguing. Security doesn't know what to do. Adanna grabbed Zainab's hand and ran. They took the elevator down 12 floors, and with each passing second, Adanna's dread grew. When the doors opened, she heard shouting immediately. The lobby of Okafor Pharmaceuticals was crowded with employees, all pretending to work while watching the drama unfold at the reception desk. Uncle Obi stood in his expensive agbada, flanked by 2 men in suits, lawyers by the look of them, and facing him, still wearing the simple shirt and trousers Adanna had bought him, was Chike. You're a fraud, Uncle Obi was shouting. A con artist, and I'm going to prove it. Believe what you want, Chike said calmly. It doesn't change anything. Uncle Obi, what are you doing here? Adanna demanded, pushing through the crowd. Her uncle whirled around. I'm here to deliver this. He thrust a document at her. A formal challenge to your marriage. My lawyers have filed an injunction. At the will reading, we'll be requesting a full investigation into your relationship with this man. Adanna's hand shook as she took the papers. You can't do this. I can, and I have. Uncle Obi pointed at Chike. This man appeared out of nowhere. No job, no home, no history. And suddenly, 3 months after my brother's death, you're marrying him? It's obviously a scam. Scam. Chike's voice was quiet, but something in his tone made everyone stop. You want to talk about scams, Chief Obi? The lobby went silent. What did you just say? Uncle Obi's face turned purple. Chike stepped forward. I said you want to talk about scams. Because I've spent the last 3 days in Adanna's mansion, and I've heard the staff talking. They remember you, Uncle Obi. They remember how you used to visit Chief Emeka every week before he died. Always in his study. Always with papers to sign. That's slander. Uncle Obi sputtered. Is it? Chike pulled something from his pocket. A small notebook. I also found this. In one of the guest rooms. Must have fallen behind a drawer years ago. It has Chief Emeka's handwriting in it. Very interesting notes about missing funds from the company accounts. Dated last year. The crowd gasped. Adanna stared at Chike in shock. Where'd he found that? And why hadn't he told her? Uncle Obi's face went from purple to gray. You're lying. That's fake. Maybe, Chike shrugged. Maybe not. I'm just a homeless man. So what do I know about corporate fraud? He paused. But I wonder what the company auditors would think. For a long moment, nobody moved. Uncle Obi looked at the notebook in Chike's hand, then at Adanna, then at his lawyers. This isn't over, he finally said, his voice trembling with rage. 3 days. At the will reading. We'll settle this properly. He stormed out, his lawyers scrambling after him. The moment the door closed, chaos erupted. Everyone started talking at once. Phones came out. This would be all over social media within the hour. Adanna grabbed Chike's arm and dragged him toward the elevator. Zainab followed silently. They rode up in tense silence. Only when they were back in Adanna's office, with the door locked, did she explode. What was that? She demanded. Where did you get that notebook? I told you, I found it. Don't lie to me. Adanna's voice cracked. I've been through every inch of my father's things. There's no notebook. Chike met her eyes steadily. Then maybe your uncle isn't the only one who's been hiding things. Zainab made a small sound. They both turned to her. She was staring at Chike with wide eyes. You're not just a homeless man, are you? No, Chike said simply. I'm not. Then who are you? Adanna whispered. Chike walked to the window, looking out over Lagos. The city sprawled below them. A chaotic, beautiful, terrible mess of wealth and poverty, hope and desperation. 5 years ago, I was a doctor, he said. Chief medical officer at Zenith Hospital Group. I had a house in Banana Island, a Mercedes, respect. He paused. Then I found out my hospital was being used to smuggle counterfeit drugs. Drugs that killed people. Children. Adanna's blood ran cold. I reported it, Chike continued. Went to the authorities, tried to do the right thing. But the people behind it were powerful. They destroyed my career, froze my accounts, made sure no hospital in Nigeria would hire me. His voice cracked slightly. And they sent men to my mother's house. They burned it down while she was inside. Oh God, Adanna breathed. She survived, Chike said, but something broke in her mind. The trauma, the smoke inhalation, I don't know. When I found her, she didn't recognize me. She ran, and I've been searching for her ever since, living on the streets, because it's the only way I can cover enough ground, talk to other homeless people, follow leads. He turned to face them, and tears were streaming down his face. So no, I'm not just a homeless man. I'm a doctor whose mother has been lost on these streets for 5 years. And when you offered to help me find her, you gave me something more valuable than any amount of money. You gave me hope. The office was absolutely silent. Then Zainab did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She walked over to Chike and wrapped her arms around him in a fierce hug. We'll find her, the teenager whispered. We'll find your mother. Adanna's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Tell your fake husband to be careful. Some secrets are better left buried. A friend. The threat was clear. Someone knew about Chike's past, and they were watching. Drop a like if this chapter gave you chills. What do you think will happen at the will reading? Comment your predictions. Don't forget to subscribe. The night before the will reading, Adanna couldn't sleep. She stood on her bedroom balcony, looking out at the Lego skyline, watching the lights twinkle like fallen stars. Below her, the city hummed with its eternal energy, generators, music from distant parties, the occasional car horn. A soft knock made her turn. Chike stood in the doorway, wearing the simple pajamas she'd bought him. He looked different now. Clean, well-fed, almost handsome. It was easy to see the successful doctor he'd once been. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Tomorrow changes everything," Adanna said. "Either we convince them this marriage is real, or I lose everything my father built." Chike joined her on the balcony. "Tell me about him. Your father." Adanna smiled sadly. Chief Eko Okafor was complicated. He built this pharmaceutical empire from nothing. Started with one tiny chemist shop in Mushin and turned it into the biggest drug distributor in West Africa. She paused, but he was also traditional, old-fashioned. He believed a woman needed a man to be complete. "That's why the will requires you to be married." "Yes." He said it over and over before he died. "Adanna, you're brilliant, but you need a husband. Someone to protect you. Someone to give Zainab a father." Her voice turned bitter. "He never accepted that I could protect myself." "Could you?" Chike asked quietly. "Protect yourself?" The question hung in the air. Adanna thought about the last 5 years, raising Zainab alone after her husband died, fighting off hostile takeovers, proving herself to boards full of old men who thought she was too young, too female, too emotional to run a company. "I've tried," she whispered. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Chike spoke again. "I lied to you earlier. About the notebook." Adanna's head snapped toward him. "What?" "There is no notebook. I made it up." Chike's expression was unreadable. "I saw how scared your uncle got, how quickly he backed down. Which means he's hiding something. Something big enough that even the threat of exposure terrified him. You bluffed." Adanna didn't know whether to be furious or impressed. "I'm a homeless man marrying a billionaire. He already thinks I'm a fraud. Why not use that?" Chike leaned against the railing. "But also means he'll come at us even harder tomorrow. He'll try to prove this marriage is fake." "It is fake," Adanna pointed out. "Is it?" Chike looked at her directly. "We've signed the papers. We're living together. Your daughter is starting to accept me. At what point does fake become real?" Before Adanna could answer, a scream pierced the night. "Zainab!" Adanna was running before she even processed the sound, Chike right behind her. They burst into Zainab's room to find the teenager standing on her bed, pointing at her laptop screen, her face white with terror. "Mummy, look! Look!" Adanna grabbed the laptop. On the screen was a live video feed. Someone was streaming from their phone. The image was dark and grainy, but she could make out a figure huddled under a bridge. A woman with matted hair and torn clothes. The text below the video made Adanna's blood run cold. "Looking for someone, Dr. Okonkwo? We found her first. Eko Bridge, East Side. Come alone, or she disappears forever." "It's a trap," Adanna said immediately. "Chike, you can't." But Chike was already moving, pulling on his shoes, grabbing his jacket. "That's my mother. I have to go." "Then I'm coming with you," Adanna said. "Me too," Zainab added. "No." Both adults spoke at once. "This is dangerous," Chike said firmly. "Whoever sent this video knows who I am. They know about my past. They're trying to lure me out." "Exactly," Adanna argued. "Which is why you can't go alone. We'll take my car, my security team." The message said, "Come alone." "And you trust them?" Adanna grabbed his arm. "Chike, think. This could be the same people who destroyed your career, who hurt your mother. If you go alone, they'll kill you." Chike's jaw tightened. In his eyes, Adanna saw 5 years of searching, of hoping, of never giving up. "If there's even a chance that's really her." "Then we go together," Adanna said firmly. "My driver, my security. We stay in the car. We observe from a distance. If it looks safe, we approach. If it's a trap, we leave. Mummy's right, Zainab said, her voice shaking. Please don't go alone. 20 minutes later, they were in Adanna's Range Rover, speeding through the empty Lego streets. Beside her, Chike clutched the worn photograph of his mother, his hands trembling. In the back seat, Zainab sat with two security guards, both armed. Adanna had insisted on bringing them, regardless of the message. Eko Bridge loomed ahead, a massive concrete structure that carried thousands of cars during the day. At night, it was home to Lagos's most desperate. Homeless people, drug addicts, criminals. The city's forgotten. There, Chike pointed to a cluster of makeshift shelters under the bridge's east side. Adanna pulled the car to a stop 50 meters away. Through the windshield, they could see figures moving in the shadows. The smell of garbage and human waste was overwhelming even with the windows closed. I don't see anyone with a phone, one of the security guards said. No light from a screen. The video ended 2 minutes after it started, Zainab said, checking her phone. It's been 20 minutes. Whoever sent is probably gone. But Chike was already opening his door. I have to check. Every person under that bridge, I have to look at their face. Wait, Adanna started, but he was gone, walking toward the bridge with determined strides. Stay here, Adanna told Zainab, then followed Chike with both security guards. Under the bridge, the world was different, darker. The sounds of the city echoed strangely off the concrete. Shadows moved and shifted. Eyes watched them from the darkness. Chike, slow down, Adanna called, but he was moving from person to person, looking at faces, showing them the photograph. Have you seen her? Please, have you seen this woman? Most people shook their heads. Some asked for money. One old man said he'd seen someone matching the description near Anakin a week ago. They'd been searching for 15 minutes when Chike suddenly stopped. He was staring at a woman curled up against the bridge support. Her face turned away, her hair gray and matted. Mama? His voice was barely a whisper. The woman didn't move. Chike knelt down slowly. Mama, it's me. It's Chike, your son. The woman turned her head, and Adanna's heart broke. Her face was weathered and dirty, her eyes unfocused. She looked at Chike without recognition. I don't know you, the woman mumbled. Yes, you do. Mama, please. It's Chike. Remember? You used to sing to me. N-W-A-M Oma. N-W-A-M Oma. My beautiful child. His voice cracked. Mama, please remember. Something flickered in the woman's eyes. Her hand reached out, touching Chike's face gently, like she was seeing him for the first time. Chike, she whispered. My Chike. Yes. Yes, Mama, it's me. But then the woman's expression changed. Her eyes widened with terror. She was looking past Chike at something behind him. Run, she screamed suddenly. They're here. Run. Adanna spun around. Men were emerging from the shadows, 4, 5, 6 of them. Big men, armed men, and leading them, stepping into the light of a street lamp, was Uncle Obi. Well, her uncle said, smiling. Isn't this touching? The fake husband and the gullible billionaire playing detective. He gestured to his men. Take them. What are you doing? Adanna demanded. Uncle, what is this? This is me taking back what should have been mine from the start, Uncle Obi snarled. My brother never should have left everything to you. A woman, running his empire into the ground with your soft heart and weak decisions. The men moved closer. Chike stood up slowly, positioning himself between them and his mother. You sent that video. You knew about my mother. Of course I did. Uncle Obi laughed. I've known where she was for 3 years. Did you think it was coincidence that she ended up here, in Lagos, when you were searching everywhere? I made sure she stayed on these streets. Made sure she stayed broken. He spat on the ground. You want to know what else I know, Dr. Okonkwo? I know about the counterfeit drugs at Zenith Hospital. I should know. I was the one supplying them. The words hung in the air like poison. You? Chike's voice was deadly quiet. You killed those children? I made money. Uncle Obi shouted. Real money. Not the scraps my brother threw at me while he built his empire. And when you started asking questions, threatening to expose everything, I had to protect my investment." He smiled cruelly. "Your mother's accident wasn't an accident, Dr. Okonkwo. It was a warning. One you should have heeded." Chike lunged forward with a roar, but the armed men grabbed him. Adanna screamed as they dragged him back. One man's gun pressed against his temple. "Stop!" Adanna cried. "Uncle, please stop this." "Oh, I will stop it. Tomorrow, at the will reading." Uncle Obi walked closer to her. "You won't show up, Adanna. Neither will your fake husband. Because tonight, you're both going to have a terrible accident." So tragic, the desperate billionaire and her homeless lover, killed in a car crash in a dangerous part of Lagos. No witnesses, just another statistic. The security guards, Adanna started. "Already taken care of." Uncle Obi gestured, and Adanna saw her 2 guards on the ground, unconscious or worse. "And your daughter is safe in the car. For now, as long as you cooperate." Terror flooded through Adanna. "Don't touch Zainab. Please, Uncle. She's your niece. She's an obstacle," Uncle Obi said flatly. "Just like you. Just like this homeless doctor and his crazy mother." He nodded to his men. "Put them in their car. Make it look like they lost control, went into the lagoon. The water here is deep. Bodies sometimes take weeks to surface." The men dragged them toward the Range Rover. Chike was fighting, but there were too many of them. Adanna's mind raced, searching for a way out, any way out. "Stop!" The voice was so loud, so commanding, that everyone froze. From behind one of the bridge supports stepped another woman. She was elderly, maybe 70, wearing layers of torn clothes and a faded headscarf. Her face was deeply lined, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She walked straight toward Uncle Obi, her finger pointing at him like a weapon. "You touch that girl, and you'll answer to me," the old woman said. Uncle Obi laughed. "Who are you, old woman? Another piece of street trash." The woman stopped directly in front of him. "I'm someone who's been watching, someone who's been waiting." She turned to Adanna. "That girl in your car, your daughter. I've been watching her since you brought your husband here 3 days ago to show him where we homeless people gather." Adanna's confusion must have shown on her face, because the old woman smiled sadly. "You came to Eko Bridge last week," the woman continued. "Brought food, clothes, asking questions about missing people. You were trying to help him find his mother." She gestured to Chike. "I saw you. I saw your kindness. And I saw your daughter, the way she looked at these people with disgust at first, then with pity, then with something like understanding. What does this have to do with anything?" Uncle Obi demanded. The old woman's voice hardened. "It has everything to do with everything. Because that girl, your daughter, Adanna, she gave me food last week. She didn't have to. Most people don't even see us. But she saw me. She talked to me. She asked my name." Tears were streaming down the old woman's weathered face now. "And when she told me her name was Zainab Okafor, I nearly fainted. Because 30 years ago, I knew another Okafor. A man named Eko Okafor, a young pharmacist who was kind to me when I was a nurse at Federal Medical Center." The woman's voice broke. "A man who helped me when I was in trouble, who gave me a loan so I could save my sister's life." Adanna's breath caught. "You knew my father?" "I knew him when he was nobody. Before the money, before the empire." The old woman turned back to Uncle Obi. "And I knew his brother too. I knew Obi Okafor when he was stealing drugs from the hospital pharmacy, when he was selling them on the street, when he was fired and Emeka had to pay restitution to keep his brother out of prison." Uncle Obi's face went pale. "Shut up, old woman. Emeka told me everything," the woman continued. "Told me he was giving his brother a job at his company despite everything, because family was family. But he also told me to watch out for Obi. Said his brother was poison." She walked to Adanna, reaching in her layers of clothes. She pulled out a worn envelope, yellowed with age. "Emeka gave me this letter 25 years ago. Said if anything ever happened to him, if his family was ever in danger from Obi, I should give this to his daughter." The woman's eyes filled with tears. I lost everything, my home, my family, my mind for a while. Ended up on these streets. But I kept this letter. Through everything, I kept it. Because Eko Okafor was a good man who showed me kindness, and I owed him a debt. She pressed the envelope into Adanna's shaking hands. Your father knew, the old woman whispered. He knew his brother would come for everything. He left you protection. Uncle Obi made a strangled sound and lunged for the envelope, but the old woman moved faster than anyone expected. She grabbed his arm with surprising strength. You're going to let these people go, she said quietly. All of them. Or I start screaming, and every homeless person under this bridge, and there are 30 of us, will be witnesses to what you've done tonight. They're street trash. No one will believe. Then you'll have to kill us all, the woman said simply. 30 people, 30 murders, in front of a billionaire and a doctor. Good luck explaining that. Uncle Obi looked around. The old woman was right. Eyes were watching from every shadow. People were standing up, moving closer. The forgotten people of Lagos, standing together. This isn't over, Uncle Obi hissed. He gestured to his men. Let them go. We'll settle this at the will reading tomorrow. Legally. The men released Chike roughly. Adanna ran to check on her security guards, both unconscious but breathing. Chike went to his mother, who was crying softly, still confused but trying to remember. As Uncle Obi and his thugs disappeared into the night, Adanna turned to the old woman, still clutching the mysterious envelope. Who are you? She asked. What's your name? The woman smiled. My name is Patience Obi. And yes, I'm his wife. She gestured in the direction Uncle Obi had gone. Or I was, before he had me declared dead 5 years ago, so he could marry a younger woman. Before he stole my share of the family money. Before he put me on these streets to die. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. You are my aunt? Adanna whispered. I am. And I've been waiting a very long time for the chance to take back what's mine. Patience's eyes glinted with something fierce and determined. That will reading tomorrow? I'm going to be there. And your uncle is going to wish he'd drown me when he had the chance. Adanna looked down at the envelope in her hands. Her father's handwriting was on the front. To Adanna, open only when you need the truth. Tomorrow was the will reading. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. But tonight, under Eko Bridge, surrounded by Lagos's forgotten people, Adanna realized something important. She wasn't fighting this battle alone anymore. The law offices of Adanna and Associates occupied the entire 15th floor of a glass tower in Victoria Island. Adanna had been here many times, for board meetings, for contract signings, for the reading of her father's will 3 months ago when she'd first learned about the marriage clause. But today felt different. Today felt like war. She sat in the reception area, flanked by Chike on one side and Zainab on the other. Chike's mother, who'd finally told him her name was Ngozi Okonkwo, sat nearby with Patience. Both older women had been cleaned up, given proper clothes, but their eyes still held the wariness of people who'd survived on the streets. Across the room, Uncle Obi sat with his new young wife and 3 lawyers. He kept glancing at Patience with a mixture of fury and fear. She smiled at him sweetly each time, enjoying his discomfort. The envelope from Patience remained unopened in Adanna's purse. She'd wanted to tear it open immediately, but something had stopped her. Her father had said to open it when she needed the truth. She decided that moment was now, in front of witnesses, in front of lawyers, where Uncle Obi couldn't make it disappear. He looks nervous, Chike observed quietly, watching Uncle Obi whisper urgently to his lawyers. Good, Adanna said. He should be. The receptionist's voice cut through the tension. Mr. Adanna will see you all now. They filed into the conference room, a space dominated by a massive mahogany table and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos. Bar. Adanna was a thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and the careful demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of family drama. Please, everyone sit, he said, gesturing to the chairs arranged around the table. Uncle Obi immediately stood up. Before we begin, I want to formally object to this proceedings. My niece's marriage is clearly a sham, arranged solely to circumvent my brother's will. Your objection is noted, Bar. Adago said calmly. However, I have here a valid marriage certificate between Adanna Okafor and Chike Okonkwo, registered with the Lagos state government 2 days ago. The marriage is legal and binding, but the spirit of Chief Emeka's will. The will required Mrs. Okafor to be married before her 40th birthday. She is married. The requirement has been met. Bar. Adago opened his briefcase. Now, unless you have evidence of fraud, actual evidence, not suspicion, we will proceed. Uncle Obi's face turned purple, but he sat down. Bar. Adago pulled out a thick document. I'll now read the relevant portions of Chief Emeka Okafor's last will and testament. As previously discussed, Chief Emeka left the entirety of Okafor Pharmaceuticals, including all assets, properties, and subsidiaries, to his daughter Adanna Okafor, with one condition: that she be married before her 40th birthday. He looked at Adanna over his glasses. Mrs. Okafor, you turned 40 yesterday, correct? Yes, Adanna confirmed, her heart pounding. Yesterday had been her birthday, spent in terror under Eko Bridge. She'd almost forgotten. And you were married 2 days before that, correct? Yes. Then congratulations. You have fulfilled the condition. Okafor Pharmaceuticals is entirely yours. The room exploded. Uncle Obi was shouting. His lawyers were arguing. His young wife was crying. Through it all, Zainab grabbed her mother's hand and squeezed tight. However, Bar, Adago said loudly, and everyone fell silent. There is one additional matter to address. He pulled out another document, this one older and more worn. 6 months before his death, Chief Emeka came to me with a codicil, an addition to his will. He said it should only be read if his daughter successfully fulfilled the marriage requirement. Adanna's breath caught. A codicil? Her father had never mentioned it. Bar. Adago read, To my daughter Adanna, if you are hearing this, then you have done as I asked. You have found a husband, someone to stand beside you. I pray it was for love, not just for necessity. But knowing my brother Obi as I do, I suspect he has made your path difficult. Uncle Obi shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Therefore, I want you to know the full truth, Bar. Adago continued reading. My brother Obi has been stealing from Okafor Pharmaceuticals for 15 years. Small amounts at first, then larger. I discovered this 2 years ago, but I could not prove it without destroying the family. So I made a choice. I changed my will to protect you, Adanna, and to ensure that Obi would reveal himself through his own greed. The room was deathly silent now. I knew Obi would challenge any marriage you made. I knew he would try to claim the company for himself. And in doing so, I knew he would make mistakes, be careless, show his true nature. I am sorry, my daughter, for using you as bait, but I could not let my brother destroy everything we built. Bar. Adago looked up. The codicil then provides documentation, bank records, transaction histories, emails, proving that Obi Okafor embezzled over 2 billion Nigerian nairas from the company over 15 years. Uncle Obi stood up so fast his chair fell over. That's a lie. Those documents are fake. They've been verified by forensic accountants. Bar. Adago said calmly. As per Chief Emeka's instructions, I had them thoroughly examined before this reading. They're genuine. I want those documents. Uncle Obi shouted. I have a right to see. You'll see them soon enough, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. 2 women stood there, both in business suits, both carrying official-looking folders. I'm Chinua Okoro from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, one woman said, showing her badge. And this is Amaka Adeyemi from the Corporate Affairs Commission. We're here to formally notify Obi Okafor that he's under investigation for corporate fraud and embezzlement. Uncle Obi's face went from purple to gray. You can't. This is a private will reading, which is why we waited outside, Chinyu said. But now that the will has been read and the evidence presented, we can proceed. She gestured to her colleague. Mr. Okafor, you'll need to come with us for questioning. No, Uncle Obi's young wife stood up, crying. You can't take him. We have a baby coming. But Uncle Obi wasn't looking at his wife. He was staring at Patience, who sat calmly in her chair, a small smile on her face. He breathed. You did this. You're supposed to be dead. Funny thing about being declared dead, Patience said conversationally. It gives you a lot of time to gather evidence. 5 years, to be exact. 5 years of being invisible, of watching, of documenting everything you did. She stood up, pulling out her own folder. Including your marriage to that girl while I was still legally alive, which makes you a bigamist on top of everything else. Uncle Obi lunged at Patience with a roar, but Chike was faster. He stepped between them, catching Uncle Obi's arm mid-swing. Don't, Chike said quietly. Don't make it worse. The EFCC officials moved in, taking Uncle Obi by the arms. As they led him toward the door, he twisted back to look at Adanna. Your father was weak, he spat. He could have been great, could have been truly rich, but he cared too much about rules, about ethics, about doing things the right way. I'm not weak. I took what should have been mine. And now you'll lose everything, Adanna said coldly, including your freedom. As the door closed behind Uncle Obi and the officials, silence fell over the conference room. Zainab was crying quietly. Chike's mother looked confused by everything that had happened. Patience sat back down, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. Bar. Adagok cleared his throat. Well, that was unusual. But legally speaking, Mrs. Okafor, you are now the uncontested owner of Okafor Pharmaceuticals. Congratulations. Adanna barely heard him. She was pulling the old envelope from her purse, the one Patience had given her under the bridge. There's more, she said. My father left another letter. With Patience. Everyone leaned forward as Adanna opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in her father's distinctive handwriting. My dearest Adanna, if you are reading this, then Patience has fulfilled her promise to me, and I am grateful. She was always a woman of honor, despite what my brother did to her. I am writing this letter 25 years ago, when you were just 15 years old. I have just learned that my brother Obi has begun stealing from the company. Small amounts, but it tells me everything I need to know about his character. I have also just learned that he has been abusing his wife Patience, and that he plans to have her removed from his life permanently. I have offered her money to escape, a new identity, protection. But Patience is proud. She says she will find her own way. So I give her this letter instead, with instructions to hold it until you need it. Because I know, my daughter, that one day Obi will come for you. He will try to take what is yours. And when that day comes, you will need to know the truth. The truth is, I never wanted to force you to marry. The marriage clause in my will is a test, but not for you. It is a test for Obi to see if his greed would overcome his caution, to see if he would reveal himself. And it is a test for you to see if you would choose love over duty. If you married for the company, I am disappointed. But if you married for any other reason, for companionship, for support, for hope, then I am proud. Your mother, God rest her soul, always said I was too suspicious, too careful. Perhaps she was right. But in Lagos, in Nigeria, in this world we live in, careful men survive. And I wanted to ensure you would survive. One final truth. I left Patience a gift in my will. A small amount, Nigerian naira 50 million, held in trust until the day she revealed herself. It is hers now, as thanks for keeping this letter, for watching over you from the shadows. Be strong, my daughter. Be kind. And remember, real wealth is not in money or companies. It is in the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. Your loving father, Chief Emeka Okafor. Adanna's hands trembled as she finished reading. Tears streamed down her face, and Zainab was crying too, reaching for the letter to read it herself. Adagok consulted his files. Ah, yes. Chief Emeka did mention a trust for a patient's Obi to be released upon certain conditions. I'll begin processing that immediately. But Patience was shaking her head. I don't want the money. That's not why I kept the letter. Take it anyway, Adanna said firmly. You earned it. More than earned it. Chike spoke for the first time since Uncle Obi had been taken away. My mother. His voice was thick with emotion. The codicil, the documents. Did my father mention anything about helping homeless people? About the counterfeit drugs? Bar. Adagoke flipped through his papers. Actually, yes. There's a note here. Chief Emeka had been investigating the counterfeit drug ring for 2 years before his death. He'd hired private investigators, gathered evidence. He knew about your situation, Dr. Okonkwo. Chike's head snapped up. He knew. How? Your name came up in the investigation. Chief Emeka made a note that he wanted to help you, to restore your license, to make sure the real criminals were exposed. But he died before he could act on it. Bar. Adago pulled out another folder. However, all his evidence is here. With this, you could clear your name, Dr. Okonkwo. You could practice medicine again. Chike's mother made a small sound. Some clarity had returned to her eyes in the past day, and now she reached for her son's hand. Chike, she whispered. My Chike. Doctor. Yes, Mama, Chike said, his voice breaking. I'm a doctor. Or I was. Or I will be again. Adanna stood up suddenly, unable to sit still anymore. She walked to the window, looking out over Lagos, the city that had taken so much from all of them and somehow, miraculously, given something back. Bar. Adagoke, she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. I want to establish a foundation, in my father's name, to help homeless people get off the streets, to find missing persons, to fight counterfeit drugs. She turned to face the room. And I want Chike to run the medical division. Once his license is restored. Adanna, I can't ask you to, Chike started. You're not asking. I'm offering. She walked back to the table, standing beside her husband, because that's what he was now, legally and maybe, just maybe, in ways that were starting to matter. My father spent his whole life building a pharmaceutical empire. It's time we used it for more than just profit. Zainab stood up too, wiping her eyes. I want to help. With the foundation. I know I'm just 15, but I want to do something. After everything we've seen, after meeting Aunt Patience and Mom Ngozi, I can't just go back to my private school and pretend the world isn't full of people who need help. Adanna pulled her daughter into a tight hug. When did you become so wise? I learned from you, Zainab whispered. Even when I was angry, even when I was embarrassed, I was watching you, Mummy. You never gave up. Bar. Adagoke was making notes rapidly. This is all highly unusual, but I'll begin drawing up the paperwork for the foundation immediately. It's a beautiful legacy for Chief Emeka. Patience stood up slowly, her old bones creaking. There's one more thing you should know, Adanna. About your father. Everyone turned to look at her. 25 years ago, when Emeka gave me that letter, he told me something else. He said he'd made many mistakes in his life, but his greatest regret was that he'd never told you how proud he was of you. Not for being obedient, not for being a good daughter, but for being strong, for being brilliant, for being exactly who you were meant to be. Patience's voice softened. He said the marriage clause wasn't really about you finding a husband. It was about you proving to yourself that you could fight for what mattered, that you wouldn't just accept defeat. He made me go through all this as a lesson. Adanna's voice was incredulous. He made you go through this because he knew you'd win. Patience corrected. And he knew that winning would teach you that you were strong enough to stand alone if you had to, but wise enough to accept help when you needed it. She gestured to Chike. This man, you could have chosen a rich man, a powerful man, someone who would have been appropriate. But you chose someone real, someone who understood loss, someone who'd stand beside you, not in front of you. Chike met Adanna's eyes across the table. Something passed between them, an understanding, a recognition of all they'd been through in just 1 week. I need some air, Adanna said suddenly. Chike, come with me. They left the conference room and walked to the building's rooftop garden, a small oasis of green in the concrete jungle of Victoria Island. Below them, Lagos sprawled in all directions, a city of 20 million people, each with their own struggles, their own stories. I'm sorry, Adanna said finally, for dragging you into this mess, for using you. You didn't use me, Chike said. You gave me a chance to find my mother. You gave me hope when I'd almost lost it all. But it wasn't real. The marriage, the whole thing. Wasn't it? Chike turned to face her. Adanna, I've lived on the streets for 5 years. I've seen the worst of humanity. People walk past homeless people like we're invisible. But you saw me. You remember my name. And when you asked me to marry you, you didn't just offer money. You offered partnership. For 6 months, Adanna reminded him. That was the deal. 6 months, then divorce. Deals can change. Chike took her hand carefully, like he was handling something precious. I'm not asking you to love me. I know I'm not the man you would have chosen under normal circumstances. But I'm asking if you consider not ending this. Not yet. Adanna's heart was pounding. Chike, you don't owe me anything. This isn't about debt. It's about... He struggled for words. My mother is getting treatment now. Real psychiatric care, medication, therapy. She's starting to remember things, to come back to herself. But it's going to take time, and I don't want to do it alone. He paused, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. And Zainab is starting to trust me, starting to see me as more than just the homeless man her mother married. I don't want to walk away from that either. What are you saying? Adanna whispered. I'm saying maybe we give this a real chance. Not because of your father's will or my mother or the company, but because in the past week, you've become someone I admire, someone I respect, someone I could maybe eventually love. Adanna looked up at him. This man who'd been a stranger 7 days ago, who'd been homeless and desperate, who'd turned out to be so much more than she'd imagined. A doctor, a son searching for his mother, a man with integrity enough to ask for help finding a lost woman instead of grabbing money with both hands. I'm scared, she admitted. My first husband, he was wealthy, educated from a good family. Everything Lagos society said I should want. And he made me miserable. He cheated, he lied, he made me feel small. She took a shaky breath. When he died, I was relieved. And I promised myself I'd never marry again unless it was real. And this isn't real? Chike asked gently. I don't know what this is, Adanna said honestly. But I know that when Uncle Obi threatened you last night, I was terrified. Not of losing the company, but of losing you. And I don't know what that means. It means we're human, Chike said. It means we're messy and complicated and figuring things out as we go. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met in a soft, tentative kiss. Their first real kiss since the hurried peck at their courthouse wedding 2 days ago. When they pulled apart, Adanna was crying and laughing at the same time. My father would be laughing so hard right now, she said. He orchestrated all of this. The will, the marriage clause, everything. And somehow, I ended up falling for the homeless man I married out of desperation. I prefer temporarily financially challenged, Chike said, and Adanna laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. Below them, Lagos continued its eternal rhythm. Somewhere in that city, Uncle Obi was being questioned about his crimes. Somewhere, homeless people were struggling to survive another day. Somewhere, families were being torn apart by greed and brought together by love. And here on this rooftop, a billionaire and a formerly homeless doctor stood hand in hand, beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, real love didn't care about money or status or the opinions of Lagos society. So, Chike said, what do we do now? Adanna thought about it, about her company, about Zainab, about the foundation they'd establish, about Chike's mother healing in the hospital, about patients finally getting justice after 5 years on the streets. Now, she said, now we go tell our daughter that you're not going anywhere. And then we start figuring out how to be a real family. Our daughter, Chike repeated softly, testing the words. I like the sound of that. They walked back inside together, ready to face whatever came next. Because they'd survived traffic proposals and death threats, embezzlement reveals, and family betrayals. Surely they could survive falling in love. This is getting intense. What do you think happens next? Drop a like if you're rooting for Adanna and Chike. 3 months later, Adanna stood in the newly opened Eko Okafor Foundation Center in Mushin, the same neighborhood where her father had started his first chemist shop 40 years ago. The building was modest but clean, with medical facilities, counseling rooms, a cafeteria, and shower facilities. Outside, a line of people waited. Homeless individuals, families who'd lost everything, people who'd fallen through society's cracks. Inside, volunteers moved efficiently. Doctors, nurses, social workers, and peer counselors who had once been homeless themselves. Mama, come see. Adanna turned to see Zainab running toward her, wearing jeans and the foundation's volunteer t-shirt instead of her usual designer clothes. Behind her walked an elderly woman, moving slowly but steadily, her gray hair neatly braided, her eyes clear and focused. Mama Ngozi, Adanna embraced Chike's mother carefully. You look wonderful. I feel wonderful, Ngozi said, her voice still a bit hesitant but growing stronger every day. The medications are working. Dr. Adeyemi says my memory is improving. She smiled. I'm starting to remember things. Good things. Before the fire, before the fear. 3 months of intensive psychiatric care had brought Ngozi back from the edge. She remembered her son now, remembered being a nurse, remembered the life she'd lost. The trauma would never completely disappear, but she was healing. She's been helping in the medical wing, Zainab said excitedly, teaching the new nurses how to take blood pressure. She's really good, Mummy. I was good once, Ngozi said softly. Maybe I can be good again. You already are. Chike's voice came from behind them. He'd just finished examining a patient, a young man with pneumonia who'd been sleeping under Eko Bridge. Chike's medical license had been fully restored last month, and he'd immediately started working at the foundation full-time. He kissed his mother's cheek, then wrapped an arm around Adanna's waist. The gesture was natural now, comfortable. They'd been living as a real couple for 2 months, ever since the night Adanna had finally admitted to herself that this wasn't pretend anymore. How many people today? Adanna asked. 73 so far, and it's only 2 p.m., Chike reported. We're running low on antibiotics, and we need more blankets. It's going to be a cold night. I'll call the supplier, Adanna said, pulling out her phone. Then she stopped. No, Zainab, you call them. You know the orders as well as I do. Zainab's eyes widened. Really? You trust me? You're 15 now, almost 16, and you've been working here every weekend, learning the operations. Adanna handed her daughter the foundation's business phone. Time to start taking on real responsibility. Zainab took the phone reverently and hurried off to make the call. She's grown up so much, Ngozi observed. 3 months ago, she looked at homeless people with disgust. Now she treats them with such dignity. She learned it from you, Mama Ngozi, Adanna said. Watching you recover, seeing your strength. She told me last week that she wants to study psychology. She wants to help people with trauma. That's my granddaughter, Ngozi said proudly, and Adanna's heart swelled. Somewhere along the way, they'd become a real family. A commotion at the entrance made them all turn. The security guard was arguing with someone, trying to prevent them from entering. Adanna hurried over. What's the problem? The guard looked apologetic. Ma, this woman has no appointment, and she's demanding to see you personally. I told her she needs to register like everyone else. I'm not here for services. The woman's voice was sharp, educated. She pushed past the guard, and Adanna finally saw her face. She was probably in her early 60s, wearing expensive clothes that were rumpled and stained. Her makeup was smudged, and her designer handbag was clutched tightly in her shaking hands. But it was her eyes that made Adanna pause. They were wild with desperation. Please, the woman said. I need to speak with Adanna Okafor. It's urgent. It's about my son. I'm Adanna Okafor, Adanna said carefully. And you are? The woman took a shaky breath. My name is Foley Coker. My husband is Senator Coker. We live in Banana Island. Her voice cracked. And 3 days ago, our son ran away from home. We've been searching everywhere, but we can't find him. Ma'am, with all due respect, if your son is missing, you should contact the authorities. We did, Foley cried. But they're useless. They think he's just a rebellious teenager who'll come home when he's ready. But I know my son. He's been depressed, struggling. And she pulled out her phone with trembling hands, showing Adanna a photograph. Someone sent this to me this morning, from an unknown number. The photo showed a teenage boy, maybe 17, sitting under a bridge. He looked thin, dirty, hopeless. The message said he's somewhere in Lagos, living on the streets. Foley continued, that if I wanted to find him, I should come here, to your foundation. They said you help people find the missing. Adanna felt Chike's presence beside her. He leaned in to look at the photo. I've seen him, Chike said quietly. Not here, but at Eko Bridge. 2 nights ago, he was with a group of other street kids. Can you take me there? Foley grabbed Chike's arm desperately. Please, I'll pay anything. I just need to find my son. We don't want your money, Adanna said firmly. But yes, we'll help you. She turned to Chike. Can you take her? I'll stay here and manage the center. I'll go too. Zainab appeared at her mother's elbow. I can talk to him, teenager to teenager. He might trust me more than adults. Adanna started to refuse, then stopped. Her daughter was growing up. She needed to trust her. Okay, but stay with Chike at all times. And be careful. They left immediately, Chike, Zainab, and Foley driving toward Eko Bridge in Foley's Mercedes. Adanna watched them go, then turned back to the center. There was still work to do, but as she walked back inside, her phone rang. An unknown number. Hello, Mrs. Okafor? This is Chinua Okoro from the EFCC. The woman's voice was serious. I'm calling about your uncle, Obi Okafor. Adanna's stomach tightened. What about him? He's agreed to cooperate with our investigation. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's giving us names. The entire counterfeit drug network, from suppliers to distributors. Chinua paused, including some very powerful people. Politicians, business owners, even a few hospital administrators. That's good, right? Adanna said. It is, but it also means there will be arrests. High-profile arrests. And some of these people, Chinua's voice lowered. Some of them won't go quietly. They have resources, connections. I'm calling to warn you to be careful. Your foundation, your family, you've become a threat to some very dangerous people. The warning hung in the air after Chinua ended the call. Adanna stood frozen, thinking about Chike and Zainab heading to Eko Bridge, thinking about all the vulnerable people in this center, thinking about how quickly everything could fall apart. Her phone rang again. This time it was Chike. Adanna, we found him. Foley's son. But his voice was strange. You need to come here. Now, bring Patience if she's there. And maybe Mama too. What's wrong? Is everyone safe? Yes, but Adanna, there's a woman here. An old woman living under the bridge. And she says she knows what happened to the first Mrs. Okafor. Your mother. The world tilted. My mother died when I was 8, Adanna heard herself say. Car accident. That's what you were told, Chike said quietly. But this woman says different. She says she was there. She saw what really happened. Adanna's hands were shaking so badly, she almost dropped the phone. I'm coming. She ran through the center, shouting for Patience and Ngozi, for her driver, for anyone who could help. 15 minutes later, they were speeding toward Eko Bridge, Adanna's heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Her mother, who she'd mourned for 32 years. Her mother, who died when Adanna was just a child, too young to remember details, too young to ask questions. What if everything she'd been told was a lie? They arrived at Eko Bridge to find Chike, Zainab, and Folake standing near the water's edge. Folake was hugging a thin teenage boy who was crying, but Adanna barely saw them. She was focused on the old woman sitting on a piece of cardboard, her back against the bridge support. The woman looked up as Adanna approached. Her eyes were cloudy with cataracts, her face deeply lined, her clothes layers of rags. But when she smiled, Adanna saw something familiar, something that made her breath catch. "You look like her," the old woman said. "Like Chioma. Beautiful. Strong. You knew my mother?" Adanna knelt in front of her. "I knew her well. We were friends before." The old woman's smile faded. "Before she disappeared. She died," Adanna insisted. "In a car accident in 1993. "No, child. She didn't die. She was taken." The word hung in the air like smoke. "Taken?" Adanna whispered. "By who?" The old woman looked past Adanna, her eyes fixing on Patience. "By your father's brother. By Obi Okafor. He and 2 other men. They came to her house one night, said they needed to talk to her about business. But Chioma was scared. She asked me to stay, to hide upstairs and listen." Patience had gone pale. "What did you hear?" They argued. Obi said Chioma knew too much about his drug dealing, that she was going to expose him to Emeka, that she had evidence. Chioma said she just wanted to protect her daughter, protect little Adanna from a criminal uncle. The old woman's voice cracked. Then I heard fighting, screaming. I was too scared to come down, too scared to help her. Tears were streaming down Adanna's face. "What happened to her?" "They took her away, dragged her out of the house. I heard Obi say they'd stage a car accident, make it look like she died, make sure no body was ever found." The old woman reached out, her gnarled hand grasping Adanna's. "But later, months later, I saw her. Here, under this bridge. She was alive, but different, broken. She didn't recognize me, didn't recognize anyone. They'd done something to her mind." "No," Adanna breathed. "No, that's impossible. I tried to help her, but she wouldn't stay. She wandered off. I've seen her over the years, a few times, always moving, always confused, always alone." The old woman pulled Adanna closer. "Last week, I saw her again. She's old now like me, but I recognize her eyes. Your eyes." Chike's voice was gentle. "Can you describe her?" "This woman you think is Chioma Okafor. Tall, thin. She has a scar on her left arm, shaped like a crescent moon. From when?" The old woman's voice broke. "From when I fell on her when we were girls. We were playing, I slipped my bracelet cut her. We were 14, best friends." Adanna was sobbing now. The scar. She'd seen that scar in old photographs, had asked her father about it once. He'd said it was from a childhood accident, nothing important. "Where is she?" Adanna demanded. "Where is this woman now?" "I don't know. She moves around, but she comes to Oberlin Market sometimes on Fridays, looking through the garbage for food." The old woman squeezed Adanna's hand. "Find her, child. Bring your mother home." Zainab was crying too, clinging to Chike. Folake stood with her son, both of them silent witnesses to this impossible revelation. Patience had her phone out, already making calls. Ngozi knelt beside Adanna, wrapping her arms around the younger woman. "We'll find her," Ngozi whispered. "I was lost on these streets for 5 years, and my son found me. We'll find your mother too." But Adanna was already standing, her grief transforming into determination. If there was even a chance, even the slightest possibility, that her mother was alive. "Tomorrow is Friday," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "Oberlin Market. We'll be there. All of us. With photos, with descriptions, with every resource we have." She turned to Chike. "You spent 5 years searching. Teach me how. Teach me everything." "Already done," Chike said, pulling her close. "We'll find her, Adanna. Together." They left Eko Bridge as the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Behind them, the old woman watched with tears in her cloudy eyes, hoping she'd done enough, hoping she'd finally paid her debt to a friend she'd failed to save 32 years ago. And somewhere in the city, an old woman with a crescent moon scar wandered alone, not knowing that her daughter was coming, not knowing that after 3 decades of being lost, she was finally about to be found. What emotional ending. Did this story touch your heart? Hit subscribe for more incredible stories like this. Share this with someone who believes in the power of family. And comment below, would you search for 30 years to find someone you love? Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. God bless you all.